Hey, what's up, everyone? Glad you're back. Quick heads up before we dive in. I just launched a new YouTube channel, City Tales, where I'm dropping even more crazy stories. Hit it up, smash that like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Links in the description. All right, let's get into it. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The red flags. They were practically waving in my face, subtle at first, like a whisper in a crowded subway car. But then they got louder, impossible to ignore. The woman I was married to, Olivia, wasn't the same woman who said, "I do," standing right there in front of me anymore. Or maybe she was, and I was just too damn blinded by love to see who she really was all along. It wasn't some sudden explosion. No screaming match, no single act of betrayal, no dramatic, life-altering reveal. Nah, it was a slow burn, a gradual chipping away, like the relentless tide eating away at the Coney Island shoreline until one day you look down and realize the ground you were standing on is just gone. In the beginning, it was us against the world. Me and Liv, a team. We shared everything, inside jokes that no one else got, late-night talks that stretched till sunrise, silly little traditions that made our tiny Upper West Side apartment feel like our own universe. But somewhere along the line, she started shifting. Or to be more precise, she started looking at me like I was the one who was stuck in rewind. First, it was these tiny little eye rolls when I cracked a joke that used to make her snort with laughter. A distracted, yeah, whatever, when I tried to tell her about my day, about the crazy client at the ad agency, or the insane traffic getting back from Jersey. She started dressing differently, talking differently, hanging out with a whole new crowd. At first, I was stoked for her. People change, right? They grow, they evolve. Maybe I was the one stuck in my rut. Then came the comments, the little digs. "You should really update your wardrobe, Mark. Those jeans are so college. Do you have to talk like that? You sound so basic. Maybe try something new with your hair. You look exactly the same as you did 5 years ago." I brushed it off. Marriage is about compromise, right? If she wanted me to dress a little sharper, fine. I could hit up Bloomingdale's. If she wanted me to be more polished, whatever that meant, I could try. I told myself she just wanted the best for me. But I was dead wrong. It wasn't about me improving. It was about me not being enough anymore. She started ducking out on being seen with me in certain spots. If she was meeting up with her power lunch crew downtown, she'd go solo. At some fancy gallery opening in Chelsea, I overheard her telling some art snob that I was stuck at the office when I was literally standing in the next room, grabbing a lukewarm mini quiche. When I called her out on it later, back in our quiet apartment, she just sighed, rolled her eyes like I was some clueless kid, and said, "Look, Mark, image is important, okay? People judge. You wouldn't understand." That one stung, and then bam, the moment of crystal clarity. The night I realized she wasn't just changing, she was trading up. We'd been invited to this small social thing, nothing too formal. Just a few folks from her fancy business school days. I was actually looking forward to it, excited to be there for her, to be part of her world, to meet the people she was all hyped about. But when I told her I was coming, she froze. Just for a split second, but that second hung in the air like the scent of burnt coffee. Then she let out this sharp exhale and said, "I just think maybe it's better if I go alone. I need to make a good impression and, you know." That was it. Not a blowout fight, not some dramatic showdown, just that one sentence hanging there between us, heavy and cold. And in that moment, the penny dropped. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was an obstacle. She didn't want to fix things. She didn't want to reconnect. She'd already decided she was done with me. She just hadn't said it out loud yet. But if she thought I was just going to stand there and let her toss me aside like some last season's handbag, she had another thing coming. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't demand some lame explanation. I just nodded, let her walk away, and let the weight of her words sink deep inside me, settling in my gut like a lead brick. But something shifted in me that night, standing there in our silent apartment overlooking the city lights. The moment she dismissed me, wrote me off as a liability, someone unworthy of standing by her side, was the moment I stopped seeing her as my wife. She thought she had one-upped me, thought she could just push me aside, rewrite her life story without me, and step into some glossy new version of herself where I didn't belong. Fine. If she wanted to impress her fancy crowd so badly, I'd make damn sure they got a show they'd never forget. At first, I thought about confronting her, cornering her, forcing her to admit the truth, to say it out loud. But that wouldn't be enough. She'd spent years carefully crafting this image, building this illusion of perfection, surrounding herself with people who only saw what she wanted them to see. I wasn't going to get into some screaming match with her. I was going to expose her. I started digging, gathering my ammo. I thought back to all the little things she'd said behind closed doors, the snide remarks about her friends, the juicy gossip she'd dish when she thought no one was listening, the way she'd mock the very people she was now desperately trying to get approval from. She'd spent so much time trying to climb this imaginary social ladder, this ridiculous Manhattan hierarchy, that she'd forgotten one thing: the higher you climb, the harder you fall. And I was going to be the one to give her that final glorious push. I scrolled through Facebook, found the event page for the party. It wasn't just some casual drinks thing. It was a high-end, carefully curated event, a stage for all these old college buddies to parade their success. The guest list was packed with names I recognized from her stories, people she used to roll her eyes at, people she used to call boring, shallow, pathetic. Now she wanted their approval more than anything. The irony was almost too perfect, a twisted joke courtesy of the universe. I clicked RSVP. She might have told me not to come, but she didn't get to make that decision for me. And I wasn't just going to attend, I was going to make damn sure that by the end of the night, everyone in that room saw her exactly the way I did. I spent the next few days prepping, not just mentally, psyching myself up, but actually planning everything, down to the smallest detail. I wasn't going to show up and throw a childish tantrum like some bitter ex. That would just make me look pathetic, exactly what she wanted me to be. No, I needed to be calculated, precise. She wanted me to be polished, sophisticated, silent. Fine. I'd do the opposite. I'd be loud, unfiltered, unpredictable. I'd ignore their pretentious social etiquette, make conversations awkward, challenge their fake smiles and phony pleasantries, and most importantly, I'd sprinkle in just enough truth, just enough carefully placed bombs, to ensure that by the end of the night, no one looked at her the same way again. I wasn't going there as her husband. I was going there as her reckoning. The night of the party arrived, a crisp fall evening in the city. I was ready, not just dressed and physically present. I was mentally locked in, laser-focused. I'd rehearsed my approach, played out every scenario in my head, anticipated how she might react, every possible move and counter-move. She wanted a night where she could shine, where she could showcase her perfect life. What she was about to get was something else entirely. I met her in the lobby of our building, the doorman giving me that slightly confused look he always did when Olivia was around, like I'd somehow snuck in. Her face when she saw me was a masterpiece of barely concealed panic. "Mark, what are you doing here?" she hissed, her voice tight, barely above a whisper. Her perfectly styled hair, her designer dress, the whole polished facade, it all seemed to crack just a little bit. I leaned in slightly, a small, almost pitying smile playing on my lips. "Relax," I whispered, my voice low and steady, but carrying a weight she couldn't ignore. "I promise I'll make this night unforgettable." Then, before she could even stammer out some pathetic argument, I turned my back and walked away towards the waiting taxi, leaving her standing there, frozen, as if she wasn't even there. She wasn't in control anymore. That power had shifted. I stepped into the crowded apartment, the air thick with expensive perfume and forced laughter, seamlessly blending into the conversations, the background noise of Manhattan's elite. But I wasn't there to play by their rules, to engage in their vapid small talk. When some guy in a tailored suit started droning on about his disruptive new tech venture, I cut him off mid-sentence, asking, "So, how much of that was funded by Daddy's money exactly?" When another guest, dripping in diamonds, bragged about her spiritual journey to some exotic island, I casually inquired if she'd actually enjoyed the local culture or just gone for the Instagram pictures. Each well-aimed line, each carefully crafted question, chipped away at their polished veneers, forcing them to fumble through unscripted reality, to confront the shallowness beneath the surface. The tension around me started to thicken, the air growing heavy. People were uncomfortable, confused. This was a space built for superficiality and social posturing, not blunt truths and uncomfortable questions. Olivia hovered nearby, feigning casual interest, pretending to be engaged in some inane conversation about real estate prices. But her eyes were laser-focused on me, tracking my every move. She was panicking, trying to calculate damage control, desperately searching for a way to stop me without making an even bigger scene herself. But she was out of moves. Then the real fun began. I started dropping hints, little bombs disguised as innocent comments, laced with barbs that were subtle but devastating. I turned to one of her closest friends, a woman named Chloe, the same woman Olivia constantly complained about behind closed doors, the one she called a desperate social climber and plastered on fake smiles for at brunch. I smiled, all teeth, and said, "Oh, Chloe, you wouldn't believe how much Olivia talks about you. She always has. So much to say." I let the words hang in the air, watching Chloe's perfectly Botoxed face shift, her carefully constructed smile faltering, as she tried to decipher whether my tone held admiration or something far less flattering. I moved on, targeting another guest, a guy named David, someone Olivia always acted sickeningly sweet to, but secretly despised, calling him a total bore and mocking his pathetic attempts to be relevant. "You know, David," I said, clapping him on the shoulder a little too hard, "it's funny. Olivia used to tell me how annoying she found you. But I guess people change, right? I wasn't outright exposing her yet, not going for the kill just yet. No, this was just the appetizer, the slow burn. I wanted the atmosphere in the room to shift, to make people start questioning her, to plant seeds of doubt long before I delivered the final blow. And it was working. I could see it in their eyes, in the way they looked at her, the subtle shift in their body language. The whispered conversations had started, hushed murmurs rippling through the carefully curated crowd. She'd spent years crafting this pristine image, ensuring everyone saw only what she wanted them to see. But tonight, that mask was cracking, splintering under the weight of my carefully chosen words. The shift was subtle at first, almost imperceptible. Uneasy glances, polite smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes, a slight hesitation in their responses. But I could feel it. The carefully constructed atmosphere of the party was fraying at the edges, fake pleasantries giving way to uncertainty, the cracks in the foundation widening with each passing minute. I kept moving, weaving through the crowd, leaving a trail of breadcrumbs, each one leading straight back to her, to the carefully constructed lie she had built her life upon. And the best part, I didn't even have to lie. I was just remembering things. A man named Richard, someone she'd once referred to as a desperate social climber, walked up, trying to make small talk, reminiscing about some ancient college memory. I let him finish his rambling story, then casually remarked, "You know, Olivia told me once that you were the most persistent person she's ever met. Said you'd do anything to get into the right circles." His forced laughter faltered, dying in his throat. Olivia's grip on her wine glass tightened, her knuckles white, her nails pressing against the delicate stem, threatening to shatter the fragile glass. A woman, Sarah, someone she always claimed was a close friend, greeted us warmly, her smile wide and practiced. Before Olivia could even respond, I chuckled, cutting her off. "Sarah, you always give the best advice," Olivia says. Every time she has a problem, she'll say, "Well, if anyone knows how to twist things in their favor, it's Sarah." Sarah's practiced smile flickered for half a second, a crack in the facade, before she quickly plastered it back on, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly as she glanced at Olivia. I was planting seeds of doubt, suspicion, unease, and Olivia knew it. I could feel her tension growing, see the way her jaw clenched, her gaze darting across the room like a trapped animal, as if she could somehow contain the spread of what I had started, as if she could somehow put the genie back in the bottle. At one point, she actually pulled me aside, dragging me into a quieter corner near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Her voice was low, trembling with suppressed rage, her perfectly manicured hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You need to stop this," she hissed, her voice barely audible above the party chatter. "Right now." I tilted my head, playing innocent, a mocking smile spreading across my face. "Stop what, Liv?" She exhaled sharply, struggling to maintain her composure, her carefully constructed mask threatening to crumble completely. "You know exactly what you're doing." I just smiled wider, shrugging. Oh, I'm just having conversations, like everyone else. Her hands clenched even tighter, her knuckles now bone white. You're ruining everything. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a quiet dagger, each word precise and cutting. No, sweetheart, I whispered, my breath warm on her ear. You ruined everything. I'm just making sure everyone else sees it too. Before she could even formulate a response, before she could unleash the torrent of carefully crafted denials and justifications I knew were bubbling beneath the surface, I turned and rejoined the party, leaving her standing there, alone and exposed, the carefully constructed walls of her perfect world crumbling around her. By now, the murmur had escalated, the undercurrent of unease transforming into something palpable, something thick and suffocating. The admiration and validation she thrived on was slipping through her fingers like grains of sand, replaced by something cold and sharp, suspicion. And then it was time for the final act, the grand finale. I picked up a champagne flute from a passing waiter, tapped my fork lightly against the delicate glass. The soft chime, amplified by the sudden silence, sliced through the murmur of voices, arresting the conversation's mid-sentence, drawing all eyes towards me. Olivia froze, her body rigid, her face pale. I took a slow breath, my smile widening, exuding the same confidence she had always tried to suppress in me, the confidence she had tried to extinguish. I just wanted to take a moment, I began, my voice even and controlled, projecting across the room, silencing the remaining whispers, to talk about something important. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd, some awkward shifting in place, a palpable tension filling the air. Olivia stood rigid, her fingers white-knuckling her glass, silently pleading with me to stop, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fury. Tonight is special, I continued, my voice unwavering. It's a night for old friends to reconnect, to celebrate, success, to remember where we all came from. I glanced at her briefly, a quick, almost imperceptible flicker of my eyes towards her, before turning back to the captivated crowd. But it's also a night for honesty. The room went completely silent, every breath held captive, every gaze fixed on me. Olivia's breathing turned shallow, rapid, her chest rising and falling visibly beneath her designer dress. I let the silence linger, stretching it out, amplifying the tension, then delivered the next blow, the words hanging in the air like smoke. Honesty is a funny thing, isn't it? I paused again, letting the weight of my words land, letting them settle in the suffocating silence. Sometimes, the people who preach it the loudest are the ones who struggle with it the most. The weight of my words landed, a physical presence in the room, hanging heavy between us, a chasm opening up in the carefully constructed facade of the evening. Olivia took a shaky step forward, her composure finally cracking, the brittle smile she had been desperately clinging to shattering into a million pieces. "All right, Mark, that's enough," she said, her voice forced into a brittle, unnatural smile, her eyes pleading, desperate. "Let's not." I cut her off, my voice sharp, unwavering. "No, Liv," I said, shaking my head slowly, deliberately. "Let's." She froze, her movement arrested mid-step, her eyes widening in dawning horror, as she realized she had lost control, that the script had been flipped, that she was no longer the director of this carefully staged performance. I turned fully to the crowd, gesturing expansively, taking them all in, each and every one of them, making sure my gaze lingered on each face, making sure they were all witnesses to what was about to unfold. "We all know someone like that, don't we?" I said, my voice resonating in the stunned silence. Someone who thrives on manipulation, who builds relationships based on convenience rather than connection. Someone who smiles to your face and tears you apart the moment you walk away. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Deafening. Then I turned fully to her, locking eyes with Olivia, my gaze unwavering, unflinching. "But the problem with living a lie," I said, each word a hammer blow, each syllable ringing with truth and finality, "is that sooner or later, the truth catches up." A single beat of stillness, a moment suspended in time, then the unraveling began. I gestured to a woman near the back of the room, a woman named Jessica, her face etched with confusion and dawning realization. "Jessica," I said, my voice clear and steady. "She told me years ago you were her closest friend. But I also remember how she'd roll her eyes every time you called, how she'd mock your problems like they were some form of entertainment for her, some pathetic sideshow." Then I shifted my focus to a man standing near the bar, a man named Ben, whom Olivia had been charming earlier in the evening, showering with fake compliments and insincere flattery. "Ben," I said, my voice laced with a cold, cutting edge, "she used to call you insufferable. Said she'd rather set herself on fire than listen to you talk about your investments." And finally, I turned back to Olivia, my gaze unwavering, my voice dropping to a low, deadly calm. "Hey, Daniel," I said, nodding towards a man standing beside her, a man I knew was a high-powered lawyer, a man Olivia had been desperately trying to impress all evening, angling for some kind of social or professional advantage. Her face drained of color, all the blood rushing from her cheeks, leaving her skin ashen white. Now it was time for the real reckoning. Silence. Dead silence. I saw Daniel's posture stiffen, his eyes widening, his expression shifting from polite interest to stunned disbelief. He wasn't expecting to be part of this public execution, but I made damn sure he was. "If you want to take over from here, Daniel," I said casually, a dismissive wave of my hand towards Olivia, "you're more than welcome to, because I'm done." And just like that, I dropped the bomb. The air in the room thickened, the silence becoming almost unbearable, the tension so taut it felt like it could snap at any moment. Every movement slowed, every breath held captive, as if the world itself had paused, suspended in time, to process what had just happened, to witness the public dismantling of Olivia's carefully constructed facade. My wife, no, my ex-wife, stood there, frozen, her face a mask of disbelief and horror, her carefully curated world, the world she had so desperately tried to build and control, just collapsing, imploding in real time. And she knew it. The silence stretched, suffocating, unbearable. No one moved. No one spoke. No one dared to break the spell. It was as if the entire party had been suspended in time, every person trapped in the gravity of my words, forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that had just been laid bare. I turned to leave, not bothering to look back at her, not needing to see the full extent of the devastation. But I felt it. The ripple effect of my words, her desperation, her panic, the way her entire world shattered in front of the very people she had spent years trying to impress. I had no reason to stay anymore. I had done what I came to do. As I walked towards the exit, the hushed whispers behind me grew louder, morphing into full-blown conversations, the dam of polite silence finally breaking. People weren't even trying to be discreet anymore, their voices rising in a crescendo of shock and disbelief. I heard my name, I heard hers, and most importantly, I heard the one thing I knew she feared the most: doubt. Because that's the thing about people like her. People who build their entire existence around perception, around the carefully constructed illusion of perfection. Once the illusion cracks, once the mask slips, it never fully recovers. The people in that room, the people she had so desperately sought to impress, would never see her the same way again, no matter how hard she tried to repair it, to explain it away, to spin some new narrative. The damage was done, irreversible and absolute. Stepping outside into the cool night air, the crisp autumn breeze of New York City washing over me, I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with the clean, fresh air. And then, for the first time in years, I smiled. A real smile, not a forced, polite smile, but a genuine, unburdened smile that reached all the way to my eyes. I felt light, unburdened, free. The weight I had carried for so long, the exhaustion, the constant second-guessing, the relentless need to prove myself, all of it vanished the moment I walked out of that door, leaving the wreckage of her perfect world behind. And as for her, well, that was another story. I heard what happened after I left, the whispers and rumors spreading like wildfire through the city's social circles. Not from her, of course. I didn't give her that privilege, that satisfaction. But word spread fast in Manhattan, especially juicy gossip like this. The party imploded, I heard. People confronted her, demanding explanations, questioning everything she had ever told them, every carefully crafted story she had spun. She tried to deny it, to claw back control, to salvage what was left of her crumbling reputation. But she was unraveling right before their eyes, exposed and vulnerable in a way she had never been before. And the thing about people like her, the social climbers, the image-obsessed, the ones who build their lives on a foundation of lies and manipulation. When they start to fall, no one catches them. I imagine she must have felt it, that gut-wrenching realization that the same people she had spent years trying to impress, trying to manipulate, were now turning their backs on her, recoiling in disgust and distrust. The next few days were brutal for her, I heard. The messages stopped. The phone went silent. Friends distanced themselves. Invitations disappeared. The social circles she had worked so hard to climb, the circles she had thought were her ticket to a better life, now saw her as toxic, as radioactive. And the worst part, the truly devastating part for someone like Olivia, was that she couldn't even argue against it, couldn't spin her way out of it. Because I hadn't lied, I hadn't exaggerated, I hadn't fabricated some sensational story to destroy her. I had simply held up a mirror, a clear, unblemished mirror, and let them see her, truly see her, for who she truly was. And once people see the truth, once they glimpse the darkness behind the facade, they never forget it. As for me, I walked away clean. No regrets, no second-guessing, no sadness. Just a quiet sense of satisfaction, a profound sense of liberation. I got my divorce. She tried to make it messy, of course, resorting to petty accusations, playing the victim, clinging desperately to whatever little scraps of reputation she had left. But she had nothing. No leverage, no power. The moment I signed those papers, the moment I severed the last tie that bound me to her, I knew I had won. She wanted a life without me. Well, now she had one. Only it wasn't the glamorous, polished existence she had envisioned, the life she had so desperately craved. It was empty, hollow, devoid of genuine connection. And the best part? I didn't even have to lift a finger to destroy her. She did it all by herself. Our story ends here, folks, but if you've stuck with me this far, how about hitting that subscribe button? It really helps the channel out. I've picked out a couple more stories for you right here that I think you'll dig. Go ahead and click on them, dive in. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.